Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the EU's new Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA, and we're focusing specifically on its oversight framework. Now, if you're a risk manager in banking or insurance, this one is definitely for you.
So let's start with a question that, let's be honest, probably keeps every single risk manager in the financial sector up at night. What actually happens if that one cloud provider, that one key software company that your firm completely relies on, just goes dark? And, this isn't just some hypothetical nightmare scenario. European regulators are now looking at this as a huge concentration risk. The fact is, the entire EU financial system leans heavily on just a handful of ICT providers. That means a single failure could send massive shockwaves across the whole market. And that is exactly the problem this new DORA framework was built to solve. Okay, before we get into the weeds, let's just get the key players straight, because you're going to hear these terms a lot. So, CTPP, that's the critical third-party provider. Think your big cloud service or your core software platform. Then you've got the FE, or financial entity, which is your firm, your bank, your insurance company. And finally, the ESAs, the European Supervisory Authorities. These are the regulators, the official overseers in this whole new world. So what is this new framework, really? Well, at its core, DORA is creating a single, consistent system across all of Europe for the direct oversight of these critical tech providers. The goals here are pretty straightforward. Keep an eye on the risks these CTPPs bring, check if their own risk management is up to snuff, and by doing that, make your firm more digitally resilient. And all of that contributes to the stability of the whole financial system. You see, this is a really big shift. Regulators are no longer just supervising financial firms, they're now looking directly at their critical tech suppliers too. Okay, now this right here is a crucial point that every risk manager absolutely has to get. This new oversight is designed to complement your firm's own risk management. It doesn't replace it. Think of it as another layer of security, but it in no way, shape, or form lets your firm off the hook. Your responsibility for managing your own tech risks, that stays completely with you.
So, how does this all work in the real world? Well, the whole thing is built around a continuous cycle of monitoring and assessment.
It's really a four-stage process that just keeps going. It kicks off with designation, where they identify who the critical providers are. Then comes risk assessment, where they create a custom plan for each one. That's followed by examinations, the real hands-on investigative work. And it all wraps up with recommendations to fix any issues they find. And the key thing to remember is this isn't a one-and-done audit. It's a continuous loop. So how does a provider even get slapped with this critical label? Well, the ESAs are going to weigh a few different things. The systemic impact if that provider failed, the importance of the financial firms they work with, and, this is a big one, how hard it would be to replace them. If the impact is high and it's tough to swap them out, that provider is a pretty sure bet for designation. Now, once a provider is designated, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Nope. Each CTPP gets its very own annual oversight plan. And this plan is built from a super detailed risk assessment that's tailored specifically to that provider's services and its unique vulnerabilities. It's a really targeted, risk-based way to do supervision. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. The actual examinations are done by what are called joint examination teams, or JETs. You can think of these as squads of experts pulled from both the big European regulators and your own national authorities, all coming together to do these deep dive investigations into the CTPPs. These JETs have two main tools in their toolbox. First is a general investigation. This is a formal review, mostly looking at documents and data that they've requested. But then you have inspections, and these are a whole different ballgame. They're way more intrusive. This gives the JETs the power to literally show up on site, get access to premises, and go through systems and records directly. That's a major new power for regulators to have over tech firms. And these investigations aren't just random. They can be thematic. So looking at a common risk, like a specific software flaw, across a bunch of different CTPs. Or they can be a super targeted deep dive, focusing on one particular worry at just one provider.
And of course, they also do follow-up investigations to make sure that any problems they found before have actually been fixed. Right. So, what happens when one of these examinations actually uncovers a problem? This is where the framework really shows its teeth. The end result of an examination is a set of formal recommendations. And we're not talking about gentle suggestions here. These are specific, actionable instructions telling the CTPP exactly what they need to fix based on the problems that were uncovered. So, now the ball is officially in the CTP's court, and they have two pretty clear paths. They can cooperate, tell the overseer they'll comply, and hand over a plan explaining exactly how they're going to fix things, or they can refuse. But if they refuse, they better have a very, very good and well-reasoned explanation for why not. And what if they refuse, and the ESAs just aren't buying their story? Well, this is when the consequences start to escalate, and fast. First up, the overseer can publicly name and shame the provider, telling the world about their noncompliance. And then the risk lands right back on your desk. Your own national regulator can start issuing formal warnings to you, the financial firm, for continuing to use that non-compliant provider. And that brings us to the ultimate threat, the nuclear option, if you will. As this quote spells out, if a critical provider keeps refusing to comply, your own supervisor can actually require your firm to suspend or even terminate your contract with them. Just pause and imagine that for a second. Being forced to migrate off your main cloud provider. The operational chaos would be just enormous. All of which brings us full circle, right back to what is probably the single most important takeaway for every risk professional watching this. And yes, I'm repeating this because it is that critical. DORA's oversight is a powerful, powerful new safety net. But it is not a substitute for your firm's own due diligence and your ongoing vendor risk management. The ultimate responsibility for managing your tech risk, it still rests squarely on your shoulders. You have to use the findings from this oversight to make your own programs better, not to replace them. So that really leaves us with one final thought. Regulators are now pointing a very powerful microscope at your most critical suppliers, and they are inevitably going to find things. The real question is your own vendor risk program ready for what they're about to uncover? Thanks for joining The Explainer.